Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. We're presenting from the Student Counseling Center at UTD. This topic is about common reactions to acute stress. First, we're gonna introduce ourselves. I am a staff psychologist working at the Counseling Center. My name is Dr. Claire Zhao. I'm currently a provisionally licensed psychologist in the state of Texas.
And I am also a licensed psychologist working in the Student Counseling Center, and my name's Dr. Garen Gobranson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this space, and we're gonna be talking about what you might have experienced due to all the changes related to COVID-19, daily exposure to news about COVID-19 and changes of everyday life may result in a wide range of responses. Reactions can be emotional, cognitive, somatic, and behavioral, and can impact mental and physical health. So this webinar we're presenting here contains information about common stress reactions, responses specifically related to COVID-19 outbreak, ideas of coping, and some related potential biases and discriminations. I would strongly encourage you to write down the things that best describe your feelings, thoughts, and reactions you have been experiencing in the past few days or past few weeks, so that you can increase the sense of control and decrease the sense of the feeling of uncertainty. So first of all, we're going to talk about some common reactions, not just related to COVID-19, but in any kind of stressful event. It is not uncommon to have emotional and physical reactions to acute stress, such as hearing bad news and encountering stressful situations. You may experience anxiety, worry, or fear related to your own health status, the health status of others whom you may have exposed to the disease. The resentment that your friends and family may feel if they need to go into quarantine, the experience of monitoring yourself or being monitored by others for signs and symptoms of the disease, time taken off from work, not able to getting a paycheck, the adjustment to working remotely, the potential loss of income and job security, and the challenges of securing things you need, such as groceries and personal care items. Those, all of those can easily lead to feeling in shock and things just feeling surreal. And another thing that is quite common is to experience uncertainty or frustration about how long you need to remain in this situation. Well, the school might have already given you some information, but there probably will be a lot of things that are still in a work in progress related to your classes, your internship, other big decisions you are about to make. This will easily lead to feeling uncertain about the future. For those of you who have some important decisions to make, such as finding a job, figuring out a major, you might feel at loss and disoriented. As sufficient information is critical to make some decisions, it can be harder to feel confident about your own decision. Some of you can start to develop symptoms of depression, such as feeling of hopelessness, feeling numb or apathy, crying without any specific reasons. These depressive reactions can also change your appetite, either eating too much or too little, change your sleep patterns, sleeping too much, or getting really hard to fall asleep or sustaining your sleep. And now that we lost some routine for getting up at a specific time, it can be difficult to manage your sleep pattern or your meal. For people who tend to experience somatic symptoms, you may also struggle with headache, stomachache, or other body pain without any medical causes. Some of you also tend to feel angry if you think you were exposed to the disease because of others' negligence or because your plans have being changed due to this outbreak. Some may feel bored or frustrated because you may not be able to work or engage in regular day-to-day activities as you normally will be doing. All of this stress will may lead to a strong desire to use some not very healthy way of coping, such as alcohol or other drugs, which can temporarily distract you from the stress, but they're not helpful in the long run. The worst part of it is once you get used to relying on drinking and using drugs to cope with stress, you will be less and less interested in motivated to solve the actual problems or develop a healthy way of coping with stress, which we'll be introducing a little bit more in latter part of this presentation. And besides all the common reactions related to many other different kind of stressors, not just limited to COVID-19 outbreak, we're going to talk a little bit more about specific feelings and thoughts you may have related to what we're experiencing now, especially during and after social distancing, quarantine, and isolation. First of all, you might find yourself compulsively reading the news and information on social media. A lot of social studies have found that social media is easily lead to more anxiety than traditional media like newspaper. Although I imagine many of you may not reading a newspaper for a long time, but compulsively reading all the information on social media with a mix of some true news and some made up stories and information can cause a lot of feeling scared, feeling uncertain, and starting to be suspicious even more about people or situation around you. And then just media of any kind, too much of being exposed to media of any kind will easily worsening your mental health conditions. And some of you may have already struggled with depression, anxiety, and even post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health concerns prior to this situation, and being compulsively exposed to a lot of stressful information will likely to make it worse. You will also easily to experience a lack of control and uncertainty, which will lead to feeling frustrated and just in general stressed. And the whole quarantine and self-isolation can also exacerbate some negative mental health outcome. And even you're just feeling bored about the situation, it can worsen a lot of not very healthy behavior you have already engaged in. Another thing, because it's a virus that we constantly get the instruction of washing your hands, doing things to make sure things are clean, you clean yourself and all that. A lot of you may start to worry more about contamination and getting preoccupied by thoughts of any signs and symptoms of illnesses, which will likely be producing a lot of feelings of being panicky, and then start to monitoring yourself and others on signs. Especially, well, I am not a medical provider. I cannot say this from a medical point of view, but we're getting some information about, sometimes people can present no symptom, and without any symptom they can still carry the virus, and information like that will even make you feel more alarming and suspicious and about things around you, and being more worrisome. And also we're getting stuck in our own place, and it can easily lead to a feeling of loneliness and being misunderstood, which will result in poor relationship with close friends, family, relatives, and our loved ones in general. And oftentimes, either you or people around you will tend to feel more angry, and there is a lacking of trust in ourselves, in the system, and people around us, which will easily lead to conflicts with others, and conflicts with personnel, staff, people at school, at work, and in other situations. Yeah, so Justin, we talked a lot about all the different things, the thoughts, feelings, behaviors you might start to have in this really challenging time. I encourage you to think about, to jot down on the piece of paper you were writing down about what are the things you have in your own control, and what are the things that are sort of in your control you can probably make some adjustments and make some changes, and what are the things that are totally out of your control where you probably have to practice some radical acceptance, which we'll be talking in a little bit. Yeah, and another thing I really wanted to emphasize that because a lot of comments on social media and on the news, there are several populations who are more vulnerable for being discriminated, for xenophobia and racism, which is really sad, and especially sad for me to see and to hear with the identities I am holding, and for many of our students who are holding similar identities. I just wanted to introduce to you that we have several other webinars are coming up about supporting international students, about supporting Asian American, Pacific Islander communities on our campus, and we have more webinars to come so that we will talk more specifically on this topic, and hope that you can click subscription and you can follow us on YouTube to get more information, to feel supported and feel validated. I wanted to read a quotation from the current president of the Harvard University, Dr. Larry Bacow, about his understanding, his encouragement of the current situation to conclude this part. No one knows what will face in the weeks ahead, but everyone knows enough to understand that COVID-19 will test our capacities to be kind and generous, and to see beyond ourselves and our own interests. Our task now is to bring the best of who we are and what we do to a world that is more complex and more confusing than any of us would like it to be. May we all proceed with wisdom and grace.
All right. So in the next portion of the webinar, we're going to be talking specifically around what can we do, and specifically some crucial tips in helping cope with COVID-19 related stress, taking care of our mental and emotional health during this time. So again, this is a really great time, as Claire mentioned, to jot down some notes and kind of follow along, seeing where maybe there's areas you'd want to develop or work in, or things that you're particularly looking at and wanting to work on. And again, as mentioned as before, there'll be additional webinars in series through our YouTube channel related specifically to this topic and other topics on self-care. But proceeding forward, when we're talking around taking care of our mental, emotional, even physical health during this time, is we kind of want to look at that as broadly as kind of like a holistic model of self-care. So things that were already discussed is around media use. We want to, consider how much media consumption we're engaging in and its impact on our mental health. Consider taking breaks throughout the day from media. Daily routine is really going to be fundamental to getting through this period of time. And the reason why routine is effective, we'll go into more detail, but it really can give us a sense of normalcy and make us feel grounded, especially when times feel very ambiguous or uncertain. We don't feel as if there's a lot of things within our control. Routine is something we can definitely have and exert some control over, and it gives us a sense of normalcy and calm. Physical activities can be very vital during this period of time. A regular physical activity helps, one, alleviate stress, improves mental and physical health, and while we are under social distancing recommendations and things like that, there is still advisement for us to be physically active, to be regularly engaged in physical activity, to get outside while maintaining social distancing, but that is very helpful. Social engagement, well, there are some challenges. Fortunately, we do live in a time with the technology we have to engage with other people in meaningful ways. We can do this through video chats and phone calls and text messaging, reaching out perhaps to people we haven't for some time, and just being regular in engagement with them. Sleep, this is definitely vital to both our physical and emotional health. Regular and routine sleep is going to help not only with our immune system response, but from a mental health perspective, it's certainly going to help with improving mood and functioning. And then finally, one of the things we're going to talk about is then how do we keep engaged? How do we keep stimulated during this time? I'm seeing a lot of reports and hearing from people about feelings of boredom, frustration, maybe feeling a little kind of cabin fevery, if you will. So we're going to talk about some activities one can do and other resources to keep oneself stimulated and engaged during this period. So again, at first, as mentioned with Claire, as media use, we want to first consider limiting news and being cautious about what we read. Consider sources, consider what we're reading, where we're reading it. If you notice yourself feeling overwhelmed, feeling tense, feeling some stress, feeling anxious, overwhelming thoughts, take a break. Take a break from social media, take a break from news media, do something very different, get out of the house, do something along those lines. Consider connecting with others and being creative. That can come in the form of group chats. I've seen a lot of folks doing like online dinner, dance parties. And then consider maybe like electronic curfew. The most useful thing you can do during this stage is, again, we're wanting to look at trustful sources of information. So consider CDC website, World Health Organization, other media outlets like that that can be really helpful in sticking to that information. Again, they're media professionals. They're doing their best job in gathering and communicating this information to us. They're also kind of responsible for protecting us from irresponsible information or information that could be rumor or other things that don't particularly help us in this time or our mental health. And we certainly don't want to be consuming, again, information that would be derogative or inciting racism or other kind of hatred amongst people. And again, we want to be really sticking to the facts here. And then again, consider social media distancing. On one hand, we're saying, yes, reach out to friends, get engaged, get involved, but maybe consider the kind of social media you're also engaging in. If it is causing you a lot of anxiety, distress, perhaps it's not for you at that moment. Perhaps curbing yourself from that and taking a little break is not a bad idea. Yeah. Next, we have is our routine. Daily routines can be really, really important. There's a really wonderful article in the New York Times by NASA astronaut John Kelly. He talks about his experience having spent a year aboard the International Space Station. So here's someone who knows very intimately what it's like to be in isolation and to cope and to know how to deal with that. So again, routine is so vital to us doing well. It provides us with a sense of normalcy during periods of uncertainty. It can kind of anchor us and ground us in providing a sense of stability. We really want to consider creating a schedule and sticking to that again. So things to consider is maybe having a scheduled time in which you wake up and go to bed daily, a scheduled time in which you engage in physical activity or exercise or leave the house, or if you are working remotely, or students, if you're doing classwork remotely. Which many of you are, is consider scheduling time in your routine to be present for lecture, but then also time to schedule homework, in addition to those other important things around sleep and exercise. That routine will really help us maintain a sense of emotional, mental, and physical health and stability.
Yeah, and also,
yes, go ahead.
And you also schedule specific time for all your meals for
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack time as you usually do.
Yeah. And again, in summary, astronaut Kelly had mentioned really important things around having a schedule, pacing oneself throughout the day. Changing your environment does a world of good. So if you're finding yourself cooped up and anxious, change your environment. Get out of your room if that's appropriate. If you're not under quarantine or those kind of concerns, go outside. Find a hobby or something you can work on. This will help not only with some distraction, but better yet, a sense of mastery. Um, I've been baking bread this last week, and that's been a lot of fun, like learning some new recipes and things like that. It gives me something to do, take my mind off, and I get to kind of work with that. Consider journaling, connecting with others. This is going to be a high priority to stave off maybe some of those feelings of isolation.
Mhm.
And next, again, getting back to physical activity. Again, social distancing, this does not mean complete isolation, okay? There's a big difference between what they're recommending through social isolation, which is 6 feet apart from people and not kind of contaminating others or being in that way, versus quarantine. Quarantine is reserved for people who are confirmed sick or feel they are sick and then are quarantined to their home. So if you are not ill and with your recommendations of your physician or nurse, please, please, please get outside, get some regular daily physical activity while maintaining social distancing. This physical activity increases both serotonin, which is that neurotransmitter that's indicated for mood, it improves our immune system response, and it helps us with distraction. And not only that, it just gives us a sense of being effective, being something we have control over. Um, Also, physical activity is especially effective if you're dealing with intense feelings of anxiety or distress. So, things to do in that case, if you're feeling anxious, you feel panicked, something you can do is some really intense physical activity, jumping jacks or burpees or push ups or sprinting outside or doing something to get your heart rate up to help with those kind of like somatic or physiological feelings of anxiety.
Mhm.
And as you are able or have the capacity to, there's really some wonderful online programs you can search through YouTube, Instagram, other things that have physical activities built in, or like routines or exercises. Really consider doing that. And another thing to consider is there are really a lot of wonderful benefits psychologically, mentally, about being outside in nature. So
Mhm.
going to a wooded area, going somewhere along, you know, a beach or a river, somewhere else you can be outside that's going to shake up your routine and get you out of your home is really a helpful thing for our mental health.
Yeah, and if you are running out of ideas of activities outdoors or indoor fitness routine, we also provide a link at the below at the last slide for you to consider what are something you can try and practice, even things you haven't tried before, but probably getting a little bit more curious of trying to get something new. You're welcome to click the link on the last slide for all the activities indoor or outdoor.
Yeah, and if you find something, please share with us, share with your friends and peers. It's great to help one another.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of helping one another, we're going to get into social engagement. Social isolation does not necessarily mean we are alone. Um, So that's really important to be mindful of that. Is we want to engage in regular self-care during periods of uncertainty. One of our staff members, Melanie Chung Sherman, who's a licensed clinical social worker, just posted a webinar on social isolation and loneliness. This can be really vital for us during this time. I see Claire changed that. Thank you, Claire.
I
Not alone.
couldn't find the little thing that I can put on the equation mark. I guess, yeah, bear with me on the technology part.
I think that one was my bad on that end. Anyway, so social isolation does not mean we're alone. It is vital and important that we engage in regular social connection to decrease those feelings of isolation. Be creative in that regard. Again, we are fortunate to have the type of technologies and things we can facilitate that. And please find daily opportunities for connection and socialization. That could even look like scheduled time. So if you have a close group of friends, you may have a scheduled time that you're connecting or checking in or reaching out to family members or others.
Hmm. We are listing all the reactions to acute stress, to especially the COVID-19, to emphasize that you're not alone. A lot of things you experience are not abnormal. Things you experience are not definitely pleasant, but fairly common, as we're all having to deal with a lot of things related to the self-isolation, social distancing, the isolation, the disrupted daily routine, and not able to do all the things we really want to do. And I wanted you to give yourself some credits for watching this webinar in the first place, because it shows that you're actively trying things to take care of yourself, to feel better, and to get more motivated for other things you plan to get started on. And also, I will strongly encourage you to try all the things we just discussed as an alternative way of coping with stress. So on this slide, we're providing some information, as Gary mentioned, the credible source of information, the CDC, WHO, which their website, their detailed information for more information, so that you can educate yourself on the COVID-19, on other things you have been encountering, the mental health struggles that you probably are experiencing right now, and also understand the risk if you decide to do something. If you start to developing some physical and mental health symptoms, I encourage you to talk to your doctors, and also advocate for your own needs by talking with your employers, your instructors, and other people. So if you are in a medical facility, you may have access to healthcare providers who can answer your questions. However, if you are quarantined at home, or if you're just staying home in support of social distancing, and you're worried about physical symptoms about you or your loved ones, I would encourage you to contact all the resources listed on this side, and also you can ask your provider whether it would be possible to schedule remote appointments via Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom, or other ways. For example, at the counseling center, we currently provide services via Microsoft Teams. You can log on with your UTD email, and then we are able to provide some consultation or mental health services via that platform. And your medical providers may have other way of communicating with you about mental health, physical health needs. In the event that your doctor is unavailable and you're feeling stressed, or in a crisis, in some sort of crisis, you please call the hotline numbers listed on this sheet. And also, if you are a UTD student, you're still enrolled, I will encourage you to contact UTD Talk Line, which will be available 24/7 if you want to have some immediate support.
Yes, and let's look at taking care of each other out there. If you found this resource helpful, this is something to share with friends, peers, family members, in addition to the resources that are listed there.
Mm-hmm. And also, I wanted to emphasize, advocate for yourself. We all belong to different groups. We all carry certain identities. If there are certain needs that is really important to you, but you're just not given that information, I continuously to encourage you to find out that information and find a way to better assert your needs. Here, we provide a link on the last slide about for the trans community, about there are some specific needs you probably want to have the terms how you can talk with your doctors or other people around you. If that is something that serves your needs, please find that link and reviewing that document, see if there's any information that can be helpful. I just wanted to emphasize the importance of self-care on this slide. There is something that you probably hear the flight attendant constantly sharing with you when you're on the airplane, that put on your own oxygen mask before helping anyone else, even that is your own kid sitting next to you, but trying to take care of yourself so that you can have more energy and spirit of taking care of other people. So really wanted to emphasize that idea. Although sharing can be helpful, sometimes it is also important to say no when you are not comfortable with sharing or engaging in conversations on this topic. Just make sure that you set some boundaries respectfully or leave conversations in an appropriate way.
Yep, we're talking physical and then emotional boundaries too.
Yeah, and on the second to the last slide, we just wanted to provide a little bit more information about currently the services we're providing at the Counseling Center. Like this webinar will be continuously posting more webinars on different topics, on stress management, how to deal with loneliness, for example, and many other interesting topics. So please view more webinars if you're interested in the conversation or wanted to learn more about how to better take care of yourself. And like I shared earlier, that all the sessions are now moved to remote services, that we're providing mental health sessions via Microsoft Teams. So that is a new platform. We can either do audio or video. You can contact us for more information at Counseling Center at UT Dallas over here. I'm sorry, the color is not very visible. Let me change the color really quick. Oh, okay, it looks like I'm unable to change it. I'll just read it to you, that the email is counseling center without any space in between at utdallas.edu. Yeah, and the UTD talk line is still available at 972-883-8255. Please reach out if you need any immediate support. Anything you want to add, Garen?
No, just be on the lookout for those services, specifically the webinars. And again, as mentioned, UTD Talk is available for crisis or risk concerns if those come up for you. Also, for those students who are at home, if you're not returning back to campus, which is likely many of you, be considerate of local service providers there, mental health providers, and others. If you're needing assistance in locating those, there's some really good websites on Psychology Today and others you can check out about finding someone who's local as well if you need that.
Yeah. And on the last slide here are just some information I brought up in today's webinar about taking care of your behavioral health, all the outdoor activities, indoor activities you may consider, and a guideline for the trans community if you have the need to advocate for your needs. As an example, there are many more resources that you can advocate for your own needs. Please share with us and share among each other, and so that we can better support each other as a community.
Thank you, everybody. Please take care of yourselves and take care of one another. And again, feel free to share this among other people for the resources and things that are available there.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.